Welcome back, True Tale Stories. It was a biting cold morning in late November when Grace pushed open the glass door of the small diner on Maple Street, holding her little girl's tiny hand. Her fingers trembled, not just from the cold, but from hunger, exhaustion, and the quiet shame she had been carrying for months. 3-year-old Lily's cheeks were flushed pink from the wind, her worn sweater pulled tight around her small shoulders as her big blue eyes scanned the warm room filled with the comforting smell of pancakes and fresh coffee. Grace had walked miles that morning. Their old car, the one they had been sleeping in ever since losing their apartment, had refused to start. It wasn't much of a home, but it was the only shelter they had left after Grace's job disappeared and life spiraled into uncertainty. She hadn't come to the diner to eat. She didn't have the money. She just wanted a few minutes of warmth, a place to sit and breathe where Lily could forget, even for a moment, how hard life had become. They slipped quietly into a booth near the door. Grace hoped no one would ask her to buy something or leave. Lily stared at the plates passing by, golden pancakes, sizzling bacon, fluffy eggs. Her stomach growled softly, but she said nothing, simply pressing closer to her mother. Grace whispered stories about imaginary pancakes and pretend syrup, promising that maybe one day, when things got better, they would have breakfast here for real. Across the room sat a man who didn't quite fit the small-town diner atmosphere. Daniel Hart, mid-30s, dressed neatly in a dark coat and crisp shirt, looked like someone whose life should have been perfect. But inside, he was quietly shattered. A year earlier, he had lost his wife Emma in a car accident, and the grief had hollowed him out. Most mornings, he came to the diner just to avoid the silence of his empty home. Daniel noticed Grace and Lily only when the little girl's eyes drifted toward his plate. She wasn't begging. She wasn't smiling. She was simply staring with a hunger no child should know. Grace quickly pulled her daughter's hand and stood up, trying to leave before anyone could judge them or offer pity. But Daniel saw everything, the worn shoes on Grace's feet, the trembling in her hand, the longing in Lily's eyes. Something inside him stirred in a way it hadn't since before Emma died. He quietly called the waitress over and ordered 2 extra plates. Grace was almost at the door when the waitress approached her gently. "Ma'am," she said softly, "the gentleman over there would like you to stay. Breakfast is on him if you'd like." Grace froze. Humiliation burned through her, and she wanted to refuse. But Lily's tiny hand squeezed hers, and the small shiver running through her daughter's body broke what little resolve she had left. Slowly, she turned around. Daniel offered her a warm, gentle smile, the kind that didn't demand anything in return. The kind that simply said, "It's okay." They sat down. Lily's eyes widened with pure joy as a warm plate of pancakes was placed in front of her. As she giggled softly at the smell, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Grace whispered a shaky thank you, turning away as a tear slipped down her sleeve, though Daniel noticed. After breakfast, Grace insisted on paying, fumbling nervously with a few coins. Daniel shook his head with calm kindness. "It's already taken care of." Outside, he noticed the old car and offered to help. Grace refused, embarrassed, but after several failed attempts to start it, she finally nodded. Daniel rolled up his sleeves, worked quietly, and before long, the engine sputtered back to life. Lily clapped with delight, and a fragile smile bloomed on Grace's face, the kind that appears when a person finally experiences an ounce of kindness after too long without it. Before they left, Daniel handed Grace a small folded note. "In case you ever need anything." That night, as rain hammered down on the metal roof of their car, Grace stared at the note. She wasn't sure why, but she dialed the number. Daniel answered immediately. Within an hour, he was standing outside with an umbrella and 2 bags of food. He didn't ask questions or judge her. He simply said, "You shouldn't be out here tonight." He brought them to a small guest house behind his family's farmhouse, a warm, safe place that smelled faintly of fresh bread. Grace cried silently when Lily fell asleep in a real bed for the first time in weeks. Outside the room, Daniel listened to Lily's soft breathing, a sound that healed a piece of his heart. Days turned to weeks. Grace helped around the farmhouse. Lily drew pictures for Daniel and taped them to the refrigerator. Daniel and Grace learned each other's stories, their shared pain becoming a bridge between them. Lily began calling him Uncle Dan, and sometimes, when she fell asleep on the porch, Daniel would look at Grace with a warmth he thought he'd buried forever. Months passed. Grace found a new job. Daniel helped fix the car for good. Hope began to bloom again, for both of them. One evening, Daniel walked into the kitchen to find Grace and Lily baking cookies. Lily beamed and said, "Mommy says we're staying forever." Grace froze in embarrassment, but Daniel only smiled. "I'd like that," he said softly. That night, they returned to the same diner, the place where everything began. But this time, Grace wasn't afraid. Lily laughed. Daniel's once broken heart felt whole again. Sometimes prayers aren't answered by miracles. Sometimes they're answered through people. Grace and Lily were Daniel's answer. And Daniel was theirs. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Let it remind you that kindness costs nothing, but can mean everything.